Hello my friends. Jazz hands. So I thought I would run a little video on some basic stretches. I do find myself in clinic, repeating myself a little bit, which is fine because everybody has a different experience. But I thought I'd just put it down on paper, virtual paper. Some of the more basic stretches that we might issue out to people. And also my philosophy on stretching, because everybody's philosophy on stretching is different, it would appear. There's a couple of things. If you're doing a stretch and you're pretty sure your technique is good, but you don't feel the stretch, then the chances are you don't need the stretch. If you're doing a stretch day in, day out, but the level of flexibility doesn't seem to be changing, then I'd probably rethink your approach, have a chat with a professional, because if you're doing something continuously, but what you're trying to change isn't changing, then something is wrong in what you're doing. So bear that in mind. When something is really tight, the analogy I give to people is that it's a bit like trying to get into a really hot bath. The hot bath being the really tight muscle. So what we don't tend to do when we're trying to get into a really hot bath is put a toe in and then go, wow, that's really hot, and go all in, get in, sit down in it. We don't tend to do that. We tend to put a toe in and go, oh my God, that's really hot. I'll come back out again. And then in a second, I'm going to try again. I'll put my toe back in. Yeah, it's still really hot. I'll go back in. Toe back in. Oh, my body's getting used to it. Come back out. Toe back in. Oh, I can get my foot in. No, it's still too hot. Back out. So you're going in and out. You're not holding yourself in there for any extended period of time. So the same applies for really tight muscles. If it's really tight and you're stretching it, don't stay in that stretch too long. Don't force the issue. Come out of it, go back into it. And it can be done, almost instantaneously. You're just moving into a stretch, seeing how it feels, come back out. So bear those in mind as you go through these things. So let's start the ball off, the ball rolling up in the neck, upper trap region. So this is an area that obviously a lot of people hold tension, and ultimately tension develops in there from postural strains throughout the day. If you spend a lot of time sitting or on your phone with your head down, etc., or on a laptop or a computer, you're straining that area quite a lot. Now, because the head is heavy, it's actually a really easy muscle to overstretch, ironically. So you probably will have seen, these kind of head tilt, pressure on, pull patterns. Fundamentally, I have a bit of an issue with this as a kind of stretch. Because your system, your neck, musculature, is always dealing with the head, right? So even if I do this, well, this side is contracting to pull my head in that direction. Even if I add a little bit of assistance, like pinky power, you don't have to use much. And you do get a stretch through there, but this side is now shortening. And if the area is kind of tight and wired anyway, then this side, which is tight and wired, moving into a more contracted, tight and wired space, is just going to get tighter. So it's like, well, if I come this way, apply a little pinky pressure to different areas of my head, I'll get a different feeling of a stretch. And it is stretching this side. But now this side feels tight because it's been, so I said, okay, I need to go back over to this side, and I come back and go, oh, but this side's tight again. Yeah, because I've just contracted this side up. Hey, what am I going to do? So I actually like doing this one on the floor, where your head can be completely supported. You still go into the same position. So you lay on the floor, you tilt your head over, you relax your head because you're on the floor, and with your arm you just a little bit of pinky power, not much effort, you just drag the head a little bit more around, but you're just completely on the floor. So you're not using your neck muscles to pull your head into that position because you're on the floor, your head is completely relaxed. In fact, it's better on a hard surface where your head can slide rather than on a rubber mat, where obviously your head cannot slide. Or, failing that, you can actually put a towel behind you and you know, you position your head, you hold the towel and you pull a little bit. Like, you don't need to pull much, you're not going to pull the towel out from underneath your head, but you pull a little bit into this side flexion position, okay? When you're there, you then drive the other arm down a little bit. So you're kind of reaching into the bottom of your pockets for the loose change and the fluff. But you're doing all of this laying on the floor. And again, you're dipping your toe in the bath, right? So if it feels really tight, you're not going to stay there for very long. You're going to switch sides. You're going to put the other toe in the bath. So you just repeat the process. You position your head, say, yeah, you've got your towel under there, and then you pull a little bit. Your head goes around a little bit more, or you can just use a little bit of pinky power and just a little bit of pressure, not much, just a little bit to get that stretch happening. Work the arm away from you, and that is a basic stretch for the upper traps. You can try it standing or seated, and if it works for you, great. I find it doesn't work for me because my head and my neck musculature is dealing with the weight of my head in this position. So it seems nonsensical to me. It's never worked for me. So have a go laying on the floor. Like I say, a slippery surface is best because then your head can you can manipulate your head with your arm and slide it around in different positions. And then it's much easier then to kind of change chin positions. You know, once you're over, you're like, okay, so my head's completely relaxed. Does it feel any different if I kind of tuck my chin a little bit, or extend my chin a little bit, or roll my head? Either way. So you can just fine tune the stretch a little bit, but still the neck isn't really doing much because you're laying on the floor, unsupported. So that is the upper traps. Next, we're going to move to the pec in front of the shoulder. All right, so next, natural pause for some editing brilliance. Next stretch, the pec. And we're looking at pec minor more than pec major, just because most of us spend a massive amount of time with the arm internally rotated. So the pec is doing that internal rotation, or is contributory to the internal rotation. So whether that's on a desk, on a keyboard, writing, eating, etc., internal rotation. And again, it from a postural perspective, as we sit and kind of relax. I won't use the word slouch because we're just relaxing. Those muscles get tight and pull us in. So we're looking to do the opposite movement. So we're looking to go into external rotation and opening that shoulder joint, the shoulder mechanics. Again, be gentle. Don't be brutish about this. So most people who are in a building have door frames. I'm going to use a door frame. My door frame is mobile and looks like this. So here's my little door frame. I'm going to stand in a position so that my upper arm is horizontal. Okay, upper arm horizontal. I don't need to come past the door frame. Okay, so you don't need to step through. You can actually be behind the door frame. And from here, what I'm going to do is hinge backwards. I'm going to push my hips backwards. Okay, what you'll see is my arm then goes into external rotation quite a way. So you're on a door frame, it's not going to move like my door frame. I'm behind the door frame, I haven't stepped past it, there's no need to do that. I did a terrible thing there of looking at the screen and not the camera. Terrible. So then we hinge, push the hip backwards. You'll see that my arm is going into external rotation because the door frame is stopping me coming with it. Nice little stretch. You might feel a bit odd doing that one in the office. Make sure no one's walking through that door. And again, same thing. Now if you're up against, you'll see my elbows come away from my door frame. If you're doing this in the office or at home, that's not going to happen, just because obviously your door frame's not moving. So little hinge, push back, simple. Obviously if you've got a solid object, then use a solid object as well. So whatever you've got, it's a nice easy way to do it. It's kind of minimal equipment stretch. is what we're after. Same idea, hold for maybe 3 to 5 seconds, change sides, come back to it. So you alternate 3 to 5 seconds on each side. Very simple, very simple. So that's pec minor and front of the shoulder a little bit. You don't want to feel any of that kind of stretch or movement down through the shoulder blades. If you feel it through the shoulder blades, you might be over cranking it a little bit. Cool. Have a go at that one. Again, if you think your technique is good, but you don't feel it, you probably don't need it. Nice one. The next stretch we're going to move on to, we're going to miss out the torso, just because it's more complicated, and again, it's not really a stretch that I'm prescribing really regularly. I'm prescribing neck, pecs regularly, very common. So the next one we're going to move into is the quad stretch. All right, so we're moving into the quad stretch next. So again, we're just going to look at this from a commonplace stretching technique. I wouldn't say this is the optimal way to stretch a quad, but it's very common. You see a lot of people stretching a quad like this. And it's this one, right? Grab the foot, pull it in to the buttock, away you go. Simple. There's a couple of ways to get this a little bit more efficient. So first of all, use something for balance. That's not cheating. Grab the foot as you ordinarily would, bend the other knee. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try and pull the front of the pelvis up, so like a pelvic tilt. Now, if you're tight through the quad, you'll feel like that actually pulls the whole thigh forwards. So as you do that, you might find the whole thigh moving forwards. So it looks like that. That's what you want to catch out and actually keep that thigh parallel with the other one. So the standing leg is soft, the thighs are parallel, and you're going to try and tuck that tail under. So pull the belly button in a little bit, tilt the pelvis, and now that becomes a much more effective stretch. So feeling that a lot. If I just come back into like a relaxed position, I get no stretch in my quad at all. Soft knee, tilt the pelvis, boom, got a stretch. 3 to 5 seconds, then I'm going to switch sides, grab it, soft knee, tail under. Good, 3 to 5 seconds. I'm going to switch back. Remember, we're getting into a very hot bathtub. So we don't want to prolong the suffering. We just want to get in there. Hold something for a bit of support if you want. So interestingly, left quad is tighter. So it's not releasing off. So rather than hold it for longer, all I'm going to do is not go back to that right side. So the right side was feeling good. It was releasing. The left side's being stubborn. Ooh. So again, I'm dipping my toe into the hot bathtub. So I'm holding that stretch in there, and then I'm going to come back to it. That's better. It's starting to ease off. It's still tight. So let's check on the right one again. Yeah, right one is good. Left one, not so good. Okay, good. Breathe through your stretching. Don't hold your breath. So I'm literally in real time. I'm just waiting for this guy to ease off. And I find this a better way to get some response off the muscles without switching the muscle off. If I hold the stretch for a long period of time, now we're getting there. If I hold that stretch for a long period of time, actually it kind of, neurologically speaking, it quietens the muscle. So the muscles then, it isn't actually going to be as responsive, which I might want, but equally at the same time, I probably want the leg and the muscle to be responsive. Yeah, that's better. So it's taken a little while for the nervous system to figure out what I'm after. I want that to release. Taking a little time. So that's a quad stretch. I think there are better ways to do the quad stretching, but I see this stretch a lot, and when I ask people, can you demonstrate how you stretch your quads? They go, well, I just do this one. And you go, does that stretch? And they go, no. And you go, okay, let me fine tune it. So you pull in all the little techniques, and it becomes a much more effective stretch. Again, if you do all the other techniques and you still don't feel a stretch, then that stretch isn't working for you. You don't need to do it. Cool. So that's the quad. Now we're going to shift to the hamstring, the dreaded hamstring. Oh no, I like hamstrings. Hamstrings are next. All right, so the hamstring stretch. Again, there's many ways to skin the cat, right? You can stretch muscles in many, many ways. And I'm not telling you that these ways are the best. In fact, some of them are not the best, but they're quite common in terms of people doing them. So here's a common way that people stretch the hamstring. So they get into a stance position. So they put one leg out in front and then they reach down for the toe. Yeah, it probably will stretch your hamstring a little bit, but it won't isolate your hamstring. So you're also going to stretch other areas perhaps that you don't want to stretch. So let's fine tune this guy and get it really good. So the foot out in front. Again, you can use things for balance. If you find like you're just wobbling all over the place and you can't concentrate on a stretch, use stuff to balance. It's not a problem. Put a hand on a wall. Have a friend. Hold them. Keep them close. So from this position, we want to try and maintain, side on, a nice lordosis. Okay, so we want to see this curve maintain itself. So leg out in front, push the hip backwards, and you'll almost feel like the heel is being dragged along the floor as you do this. In fact, if you do get a little traction in there, it'll probably be a better stretch. So there. Now I'm getting a really good stretch down the hamstring. A really good stretch, so I'm not going to spend long in the bathtub. Switch sides, bend the knee a little bit. There we go. Trying to keep this lordosis, so I'm trying to keep the rib cage up. Yeah, that's good. So when you do the regular version, where people put the leg out in front, bend over, that doesn't stretch my hamstring at all. But this, there, getting a good hamstring stretch. Nowhere near my toes. That's not the objective. Nice. And again, I'm just going to alternate. Stuff for balance if you need to. Yeah. Now you can perform this from a seated position. It's exactly the same thing. You put one leg out in front, hinge on the hip, push the hips back, drag the heel in a little bit as you do that. Gets a good hamstring stretch. So that is the way to modify that stretch a little bit so that it just isolates off on my hamstring. So hamstring's done, or at least one variation on it. Then we're going to move down to the calf. 2 stretches in the calf. Let's do those next. All right, so calf stretch, here we go. So there's 2 sort of primary muscles in the calf to stretch, to concern ourselves with. Gastroc, the muscle that you see at the top of the lower leg, and then the soleus, which actually lies underneath it and kind of runs a little deeper as well. So for this one, you need like a foot raise, a little foot raise, whether that's yoga block, a thick book, old school dictionary, you know, something 1 inch, 2 inches or so is optimal. So if you've got the block, great. The ball of the foot goes on, the knee is straight, and then from here all I'm going to do is bring my hip over my toes. So I'm just going to try and be as upright as possible, pushing the hip forwards so that stretches the calf. Okay, you would switch sides, push in, lovely stuff, good stretch. You can do it up against a wall or a straight surface, so you can just angle that foot in, bring the body up towards it. The foot might slide a little bit, but as long as it doesn't go flat, you're all good. Change sides. So that stretches the gastroc, so the muscle that's higher up towards the knee. Then we want to stretch the muscle that's kind of lays behind it. So, same idea, get the foot raised, the ball of the foot raised, Now this time, you bend the knee. You actually push the knee over the toes. Nice and straight over the toes. Keep the heel on the ground. Now this stretch will shift a lot lower down. Ball of the foot on, push forwards. If you've got your foot up against a wall, then you're going to be pushing your knee towards the wall. Now, when that muscle is tight, your knee will not touch the wall. You'll be very far away. So again, ball of the foot on, bend the knee, push the knee forwards. That stretches the soleus muscle. Same thing. Really, really easy. I tend to find that people don't know about the bent knee version. Or they do, lean up against a wall, the trailing leg is straight, heel on the ground, and that stretches the calf, but they don't then do the version where you bend the knee. So again, this is another way to do this. You do see runners kind of, they're guilty of carrying out this stretch. It's fine, but you tend to see them just straight as opposed to then going bent. So there's two different muscles you've got to work. Straight in the knee, bent in the knee. Give those a bash. Those are very common stretches, but hopefully we've kind of fine-tuned them and improved them a little bit. So until next time, keep your bodies moving because that's kind of key for mobility. Keep them hydrated. Funny enough, your body needs fluid to maintain joint biomechanics and muscular advantage. So plenty of H2O, plenty of movement. And yeah, stay happy, have some fun. Whatever fun is for you, have a bit of that. So until next time, be good.